Today, we continue with the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, chapter 33. We are still continuing the same chapter with various devotees. Om Tavakathamritam Tapta Jeevanam Kavibhiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatam Vikrinanti Te Purita Janaha. O Lord, your words like sweet nectar refresh the afflicted. Your words, which poets have sung in verses, vanquish the sins of the worldly. Blessed are they who hear of you, and blessed indeed are they who speak of you. How great is their reward. The other day we saw the devotee asking Sri Ramakrishna, can a man live in the world if his mind is once directed to God? That's one question comes. If you are interested in spiritual life, if your mind is directed to God, can you live in the world? Again, another question comes. If your mind is directed to God, if you are in the world, leading a worldly life, can you realize God? These questions, doubts come to people. So, about that, Sri Ramakrishna says, how to live in the world. Says, live in the world like a cast off leaf in the gale. Such a leaf is sometimes blown inside a house and sometimes to a rubbish heap. The leaf goes wherever the wind blows, sometimes to a good place, sometimes to a bad. Now God has put you in the world. That's good. Stay there. Again, when he lifts you from here and puts you in a better place, there will be time enough to think about what to do then. Live in the world like a cast of leaf. The leaf does not demand anything. The leaf goes wherever the wind takes it. Sometimes to a rubbish heap, sometimes a garden bed, manicured garden bed. Wherever the wind takes it, the leaf goes there. In the world, we have to live like that, completely surrendering to God. Now God has put you in the world, that's what Sri Ramakrishna is telling them. Now God has put you in this world, the life of world, in householder, fine, do that, do your duties. And when God takes you to a different place, then you can think what to do then. At present, we do what you have to do. So wherever we are, it's just a question of whether the life of a householder is greater than the life of a monastic, or the life of a monastic is greater than the life of householders. No, it's a question of great, inferior, or superior. Swamiji says, let everyone do the best he can for realizing his own ideal. Nor is it right that I should be judged by your standard or you by mine. There are different ideals, standards for the householder, the person who lives in the world, and the monastic who has given up the world. The question is, can one realize God if you live the householder's life? Even last Friday, and day before yesterday, when we had the discussion, that was when somebody was raising the question. If you, in the world, living a family life, can you realize God? Of course. Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, you can. Sri Ramakrishna had many householder devotees, disciples. He never encouraged them to give up world. Like, for example, the recorder of this gospel, he wanted again and again, he requested Sri Ramakrishna ask permission to renounce the world and take to as monastic life. Sri Ramakrishna said, no. You are in the world, lead a householder's life. Show how leading a householder's life you can realize God. Because it is, and again he says, it's a advantage, a householder's life. What's the reason? In the world, a man must fight against passions like lust, anger, against many desires, against attachment. It is convenient to fight from inside a fort, from his own home. When the country or a kingdom is attacked by enemy, it's safe to fight from the fort. You have got the protection. The household has got the protection. Everybody has to fight against the passions, lust, anger, greed, desires, attachment. You have to fight against that. And so it is better or easier to fight from inside the fort. The fort is a home. At home, when you are staying in the home, you don't have to worry about getting food. If you are sick, the family is there to look after you. If you are living a monastic life, then you had to, early days, people had to go from house to house begging for food. So Sri Ramakrishna gives an example in a funny way. A man wanted to renounce and become monk. He's a married man, he has got a wife and children. So the wife said, well, if you want to go to 10 houses to get your food, one meal, then you can renounce. Otherwise, stay. At home, one home, you get food. You can call on God. Nobody is stopping you from calling on God. That's why Sri Ramakrishna says it's a convenient to fight from inside the fort. At home, he gets his food and other help from his wife. It is better to get food at one place than to knock at 7 doors for it. You're going from house to house, asking for a little bit of food, because without food, nobody can live. Whether you're a monk or a householder, you need food to survive. So if you are to renounce the world, you should have intense renouncance, intense dispassion. Otherwise, it is better to lead a householder's life. But there is no question of which this is greater or inferior or superior. That's why Swamiji said, it's not right that I should be judged by your standard or you by mine. Each one has got their own duty. The householder's duty is different from the monk's duty. Duty is different. Ideas are different. Each one is great in his own place. And so Swamiji continues, our duty is to encourage everyone in his struggle to live up to his own highest ideal and strive at the same time to make the ideal as near as possible to the truth. So what's our aim? We should encourage everyone in his or her struggle to reach up to the ideal, to his or her ideal. Each one is different, the ideal is different. And strive at the same time to make the ideal as near as possible to truth. Ideal is very high. So should we bring it down? No, ideal should be kept high. But strive to make the ideal as near as possible to the truth. And we strive for the high ideal. Because we have got the tendency, if the ideal is very high, then we strive for it. If the ideal is brought down, our struggle will be less. And slowly, we won't realize how the ideal goes down and down and down. So keep the ideal always high. Keep the high ideal and strive for that. All that is necessary is to have, whether you are leading a life of a householder or a monastic, all that is necessary is dispassion, intense longing for God, and firm faith in God. That's necessary. Living in the world, will say, well, where else can we live? We cannot live other than there's no other place to live other than the world. Where can you go? If you are living, we have to live in the world. But that does not mean that world should be within us. We live in the world, but don't allow the world to come inside. Let the boat be in the water, but not allow water to be in the boat. Then you will sink. The boat will sink. If the water comes in the boat will sink. If you allow worldliness, the world to come inside you, then you will go down. But if you allow the world to stay out, but be in the world, then you can nicely float along. God has put you in the world. What can you do about it? Resign everything to Him. Surrender yourself at His feet. Then there will be no more confusion. Then you will realize that it is God who does everything. God has put you in the world. What can you do about it if you don't have any choice? So resign everything to Him. Surrender yourself to God. Then there will be no more confusion. We all say we are in the world, we are attached, it's all Maya. And Maya is very difficult to get over. Shri Krishna says in the Gita, Mama Maya Duratya. My Maya. Maya power is God's power. So it's very hard. But there is a way. He says hard, but not impossible. Mama Maya Duratya, it's very hard to cross over. But he gives how to do that. Mamevaye prapadyande mayam etam tarantide. Those who take refuge in me, they will cross over this Maya, can cross over this Maya. There's a way. Take refuge in God. Take refuge in God, then we'll be able to cross over this Maya. That's why Sri Ramakrishna says, surrender yourself at His feet. There will be no more confusion. Surrender to God with sincere faith and longing for God. We're not longing for things of the world, but longing for God. Not that we had to change our way of life. All we had to do is just change our way of thinking. At present, we think we are doing all these things, the people, they belong to me. If I don't do, nothing will work. We have put this I, big I. They are mine. I have to do this. I am doing all this work. Change that attitude and think God is doing everything. God is using me as a tool to do His work. He is the doer. God is the doer. So let him do whatever He wants with me. That doesn't matter. All I offer everything at His feet. I surrender myself completely to Him. Then you will realize that it is God who does everything. All depends on the will of Rama, a devotee. What's the story about the will of Rama? Because the devotee must have heard this story. Otherwise, how can you know just by hearing the word will of Rama? So he's asking, what's the story about will of Rama? Master. In a certain village, there lived a weaver. He was a very pious soul. Everyone trusted him and loved him. He used to sell his goods in the marketplace. When a customer asked him the price of a piece of cloth, the weaver would say, by the will of Rama, the price of the yarn is 1 rupee and the labor 4 annas. By the will of Rama, the profit is 2 annas. The price of the cloth by the will of Rama is 1 rupee 6 annas. So he is giving the price of the yarn, the price of the work, labor, and the profit, everything. Such was the people's faith in the weaver that the customer would at once pay the price and take the cloth. The weaver was a real devotee of God. After finishing his supper in the evening, he would spend long hours in the worship hall, meditating on God and chanting His name and glories. Now, late one night, the weaver couldn't get to sleep. He was sitting in the worship hall, smoking now and then, when a band of robbers happened to pass that way. They wanted a man to carry their goods and said to the weaver, come with us. So saying, they led him off by the hand. After committing a robbery in a house, they put a load of things on the weaver's head, commanding him to carry them. Suddenly the police arrived and the robbers ran away. But the weaver with his load was arrested. He was kept in the lockup for the night. Next day, he was brought before the magistrate for trial. The villagers learned what has happened and came to the court. They said to the magistrate, "Your Honor, this man could never commit robbery." Thereupon, the magistrate asked the weaver to make his statement. The weaver said, "Your Honor, by the will of Rama, I finished my meal at night. Then, by the will of Rama, I was sitting in the worship hall. It was quite late at night by the will of Rama. By the will of Rama, I had been thinking of God and chanting his name and glories, when, by the will of Rama, a band of robbers passed that way. By the will of Rama, they dragged me with them. By the will of Rama, they committed robbery in a house. And by the will of Rama, they put a load on my head. Just then, by the will of Rama, the police arrived. And by the will of Rama, I was arrested." Everything's happening by the will of Rama. Then, by the will of Rama, the police kept me in the lockup for the night. And this morning, by the will of Rama, I have been brought before your honor. The magistrate realized that the weaver was a pious man and ordered his release. On his way home, the weaver said to his friends, "By the will of Rama, I have been released." So everything that happened to him, whether good or bad, sitting and meditating after his night meal, robbers dragging him off with them and putting a load of stolen goods on his head, everything's happened by the will of Rama. And then he was arrested, that's also will of Rama. He was released, that's also will of Rama. Everything he's not simply saying, when we say, "Oh, by the will of God," it's only lip service. We don't really feel it. But this man was really feeling everything happens by the will of Rama, by God's will. We have got our own will. We think, "Oh, I'm doing all these things. I have got the freedom to do what I want." That's our idea. This sense of free will that I can do whatever I want will remain with us as long as the idea of I, the sense of I remains. So as far as this man was concerned, his the doership has gone. He has no idea. He is doing everything happening by the will of Rama. He is not doing. So there's two will, human will and divine will. And everything happens by the divine will. Sri Ramakrishna says, not even a leaf of a tree will move without his will. Nothing happens without the divine will. But we think we are all doing, we have got freedom. Of course we have got freedom. As Sri Ramakrishna again says, as the freedom of a tethered cow. You can stand the length of the rope. The cow is tethered to a stake with a long rope. The cow can remain near the stake or go to the whole length of the rope. That much freedom we have. That's all our free will. We think that we have got freedom, we can do whatever we want. So this mystic William Law says, the will stands between God and nature and must, in all its working, unite either with God or with nature. In every situation, both are present. Human will and divine will. Now, depends upon us what we choose. Look at the case of Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna had his self-will. I will not fight because I am going to kill all these people. It will be all sin. I won't fight. But the divine will was, he has to fight evil. He has to fight injustice without attachment. That is divine will. But how do we know which is the divine will? We say it's by the will of God. But actually, if you think deeply, sincerely, analyze ourselves, we find that most of the time it is our selfish interest, selfish will. So how do you know? How can you really know it's God's will when there is no self-interest at all involved? Actually, till we realize God, we cannot completely know whether it is God's will or our will. But still, if selfishness is completely gone, ego is gone, then we can, to a certain extent, say we are doing God's will. That everything is happening by God's will. And at present, because we don't know whether it's our will, most of it's our will. So all we can do is pray to God to make us instrument to do his work. That's why Sri Ramakrishna says, it's God's will. God has put you in this place. So do your duty at present, whatever is the duty. All we have to do is change our attitude. If we see everything as pervaded by God, then everything is God. Whatever we are doing, God's work, God is doing. Nothing is there. We are also God. Things outside is also God. Everything is God. Ishavasimiddham sarvam. Everything is pervaded by God. That attitude, if we can bring in, that, it's all difficult to practice, but through practice only, repeated efforts only, this will come. Whether a man should be a householder or monk depends on the will of Rama. God, it's the will of, through God's will, it is decided whether a person will be a householder or a monk. Surrender everything to God and do your duties in the world. What else can you do? People often think that if you become a monk, all the problems will be solved. In the world, you have got a lot of problems. So give up everything, become an ascetic, a monk or a nun, all the problems are solved. Problems are not solved. Problems are of the mind, not of the external renunciation. Unless you have intense longing for God, intense dispassion, but giving up the world is not going to solve the problem. Problems will be there. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna says, surrender everything to God and do your duties in the world. Everybody has got duties, whether you are a householder or a monk. Duties are different, that's all. Everybody has got their duties, everybody has got to live up to their ideal. Ideal is different, duties are different. Do your duty, whatever is duty, without attachment. So to quote from Swamiji, again, each duty has its own place according to circumstances in which we are placed. And we must perform our duties. Depending upon the circumstances, duties change. Depending upon the station or stage of life. In Hinduism, we had the 4 stages of life. The student life, the householder's life, the retired life, the ascetic life. The duties are different. Whatever be the stage of life, do your duty without attachment. That's the most important thing. And whether you are a householder or a monk depends on the will of God. And you cannot say this is superior and this is inferior. No. Each is great in its own place. The householder's life is great. The monastic life also is great. If you look at the 4 stages of life, the householder is the pillar of the society. In early days, in former times in India, the householder, the one leading the family life, is the person who is supporting all the other 3 stages of life. The student is living in this with the teacher's home. That's the custom at that time. So it's not earning anything, no income. Who is supporting them? Who is supporting the teacher? There was no fees paid to the teacher at that time. The students were not paying fee. Only at the end of education, the family may, if they could afford, they may give some gifts. Otherwise, the kings used to support the rich people is to support. So the family, the householder is the supporter of the education system, the students. Then retired people, elderly people, who is supporting them? The family members who is living, and ascetics. All the three stages, other three stages of life is supported by the householder. So they say householder is a pillar of the society. So you cannot say householder's life is inferior, no. Again, monastic life is also great. To say that each is great in its own place, to say that you cannot say this is superior, this is inferior. No, you cannot say that. Swamiji in his lectures on Karma Yoga gives a story. A king used to ask to the people who, scholars, monks, whoever came to his kingdom, ask this question: which is greater? Which is superior? The householder's life or monastic life? And if they say householder's life, prove it. If the person cannot prove, then be a scholar, whatever is settled down as a householder. If a monk says monastic life is greater, and if he cannot prove, then the king will force that monk to settle as a householder. So it went on like that. Then nobody could give a satisfactory answer to him. Then one day, in the course of traveling, one monk came. He put the same question: which is greater, which is superior, which is higher, a monastic life or householder's life? Then the monk said, each is great in its own place. Each is great in its own place. Householder's life is great, monastic life also is great in its own place. You cannot compare. So the king said, show me the proof. How can you have to prove it to me? The monk said, I will prove, but you have to come and stay with me. Live with me for some time. Then I can prove. He said, all right. So he gave the responsibility to the ministers and went with the monk, with this monk. They walked and walked and walked. After walking for many days, they came to far away, left the kingdom, came to another kingdom far away. And there was big, when they came to the capital, they found this big festival celebration going on. So what's the matter? Oh, the princess is going to getting married. Now in the olden days, they had a thing called Swayamvara. The princess will choose whom she will marry. Now this princess wanted to marry the most beautiful man. Many times they have organized this Swayamvara. All the princes from different kingdom will come, and the princess will go around. If she is happy with somebody, if she is ready to choose someone, she will put the garland. Otherwise, this goes on. This time also, princess was taken from person to person. She will be carried in a palanquin, and then there will be heralds who will describe the greatness or glory of this particular man. And she didn't like anybody. And everybody thought of this again, another flop. So many times this has happened. She couldn't choose a man. Again, this time also same thing. At that time, a young monk came and stood in the crowd looking at what's happening, this big thing happening. And as soon as the princess saw this monk, she was so fascinated by his beauty, she put the garland on his neck. And he threw it away. What? I'm a monk. What is marriage to me? Threw it away. Then the king thought maybe because he's poor, he's mendicant, he doesn't have, so he doesn't want to marry a princess. Said, no, as soon as you marry, you'll get half the kingdom. And after my time, you'll be the king of the country. And again, put the garland around his neck. He threw it off. I'm a monk. What's marriage to me? And he walked off. Now the princess has chosen him as her husband. No, I won't marry anybody else. That's my husband. So she walked behind him. Now the king and this monk, the monk told the one who started earlier, remember, the monk told the king, let's follow the pair and see what happens. So they At a distance, they followed. The young monk, on whom the princess garlanded, he walked fast, left the city, left the kingdom, went into the forest. The princess was following her, and these two following at a distance. After some time, the monk knew the forest path. In his one path, he just disappeared. And the princess could not find where it became dark, and she could not find any way. So she sat under a tree and she started weeping. And then these two came up to her and said, "Don't worry, we will take you out from the forest tomorrow morning. Now it's too dark. Let's wait under this tree." So the princess, the king, and the monk who said, "Each is great in its own place," all the three waited under the tree. Now on the tree, there was a bird, with its family. Now the bird saw, the male bird told his wife, "Now we have got 3 guests, and it's cold. They're shivering. We had to do something." And the little bird flew off and brought a stick with fire and dropped it in front of them. They understood the idea, so they collected some twigs and everything and lighted a fire. So from the cold, they were relieved a little. Then the bird was not happy. "Well, we have given them warmth, but they are hungry. They haven't eaten anything. What can we do? What can we give? We don't have any food. I'll give my body." Saying this, the male bird jumped into the fire. And before they could save, it went to the fire, fell in the fire and died. And then the female bird said, "There are 3 people, and it's a small bird. How much meat will it have? It's not enough for them. So I should complete the work started by my husband." So it also fell into that, died. Then the 3 chicks were there. They said, "There are 3 of them. Our parents tried their best to satisfy their guests. It's not enough. So we should complete the work started by our parents." They also jumped in the fire. Of course, the 3 people couldn't eat the meat. They just sat there. And then the next morning, took the princess back to the kingdom. Then the monk told the king, "See, each is great. If you are a householder, you must be like the birds. Must be ready to sacrifice your life for others, if need be. If you are a monk, you have taken the monastic life, you should discard everything, beauty, wealth, power, everything, without a second glance, without looking back. Each is great in its own way." You cannot say, "This is great, this is no." Each are great. But duties are different. You, the duty, we have to do our duty to whatever according to our station in life. Surrender yourself to God and do your duties in the world. What else can you do? And once you realize God, you are living in the world. You have realized God. So what will you do? Just continue living as the God, as you had lived before. That's the first question he asking. Can a man live in the world if his mind is once directed to God? Yes, after realizing God, you can live in the world. So Sri Ramakrishna gives an example. A clerk was once sent to a prison for doing some illegal things. He was sent to the jail. After the prison term was over, he was released. Now, what do you think he did? Cut capers on or do his old clerical work? Goes back to his work. So once you realize God, there is nothing different. You still continue doing your work, whatever your duties are. You see, not exactly realizing God, but an idea similar to that. Most of you may know how Sri Ramakrishna worshipped Holy Mother and offered all the results of all his spiritual practices at her feet. So she received all that spiritual power. But in the next morning, what did she do? She continued with her duties. Cooking for Sri Ramakrishna, the devotees, looking after her mother-in-law, Sri Ramakrishna's mother, do everything. Nothing, no change. Outwardly, there's no change. So realizing God, the householder will continue living as a householder. It's no change. If the householder becomes a Jivan Mukta, then he can easily live in the world if he likes. Once householder becomes Jivan Mukta, realized while alive, in this body, in this life, he can easily live in the world if he likes. If you want, there's no problem. But you will never be deluded. You know the world is nothing but God. That idea will be there. You are covering everything with God. A man who has attained knowledge does not differentiate between this place and that place. All places are the same to him. Everything is same because everything is God. That person who has realized God sees everything as God. There's no difference. Then he speaks about his visit to Keshav Chandra Sen, the Brahmo leader. When I first met Keshav at Jayagopal's garden house, I remarked, he is the only one who has dropped his tail. And these people laughed. It's natural. Suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna is coming and meeting Keshav Chandra Sen for the first time. Keshav is already a famous man at that time, orator, leader of the Brahmo Samaj. Sri Ramakrishna says he had been to England, had met Queen Victoria. So all big things. And this is an unknown Brahmin priest of a temple. No, Sri Ramakrishna was not known to anybody at that time. But Sri Ramakrishna went to see Keshav because he heard that Keshav thinks of God. Wherever, anywhere, he heard that the person is thinking about God, interested in God, spiritual life, he'll go and see him. So he has come to see Keshav. And his nephew walked up to Keshav group and said, my uncle always thinks about God. He heard that you think about God, so he has come to see you. And Keshav and his group, other Brahmos, looked at Sri Ramakrishna, nothing spectacular. Just an ordinary man wearing a ordinary dhuti and a shirt. Nothing spectacular. All right, they thought they didn't do anything. They just waited. Then Sri Ramakrishna suddenly commented, he has dropped his tail. No wonder they laughed. He's half mad. Say that he has dropped his tail. At this, people laughed. Keshav said to them, don't laugh. There must be some meaning in his words. Let us ask him. Thereupon I said to Keshav, the tadpole, so long as it has not dropped its tail, lives only in the water. It cannot move about on dry land. But as soon as it drops its tail, it hops out on the bank. Then it can live both on land and in water. See how apt example Sri Ramakrishna gives. The tadpole, as soon as it's hatched from the egg, can live only in the water. But once it drops its tail, as it grows a few days older, its tail is dropped, then it can hop onto the bank, live on the land or in the water. Till then it's a water creature, not amphibian. Once the tail is dropped, then he can live in water or on land as it pleases. Likewise, as long as a man has not dropped his tail of ignorance, he can live only in the water of the world. But when he drops his tail, that is to say, when he attains the knowledge of God, then he can roam about as a free soul or live as a householder if he likes. So what's the tail that Keshav has dropped? The tail of ignorance. Tail of ignorance is gone. then a person can live in the water of the world or go around on the land as a free soul, without getting attached to anything. He can do anything because he has dropped the tail of ignorance. Ignorance is completely gone. It's not that, so that's the answer to the first question. Yes, you can live in the world. There are many, many sages, many, many kings who have realized God and lived in the world as householders. The classic example we have is Janaka, King Janaka, father of Sita. He is, another name for Janaka is Videha. Videha means the one without body consciousness. He has no consciousness that he was a body. When he didn't identify the body with himself, with Janaka. Janaka, he had the idea that he is the soul, an Atman, not the body. Lives in the body. That's of course, for practical purposes, you need a body. So to rule the kingdom, to deal with people, you need a body. So he occupied that body. The body was just a tool, a carriage or house where the soul lived. That realization comes after the knowledge of God. Sri Ramakrishna continues. Worldly people ask why one does not get rid of attachment to woman and gold. That attachment disappears after the realization of God. If a man once tastes the bliss of Brahman, then his mind no longer runs after enjoyment of sense pleasures or wealth or name or fame. People ask, why can't we get rid of, why is that we don't get rid of attachment? We know attachment is not good. Why is that we have got attachment? So when attachment is not easy to go, attachment disappears only after realization of God. As long as we haven't realized God, attachment will be there. The greatest attachment is attachment to the body. I means that for me as this is the body. Attachment to and it is to attachment to our body that we attach to everybody else. Because attachment is for my family, my people, my society, my community, my country, because everything is mine. If that I is removed, there's no attachment. Attachment comes through that feeling of I. And that will go only when you realize God. Till then, that attachment that will be there. So Sri Krishna says, objects vishya vinivartande niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Objects received from the abstinent man, leaving the longing behind. If you don't indulge in sense pleasures, they may move away from you, but deep down, the desire for them remains. Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Even that longing ceases when Supreme is realized. When the Supreme is realized, even the desire for the longing for pleasures are removed. No more desire will be there. That's what Sri Ramakrishna says. That attachment disappears after the realization of God. When a man tastes the bliss of Brahman, then his mind no longer runs after the enjoyment of sense pleasures or wealth or name or fame. So once you have bliss of Brahman, say, then these pleasures become insignificant. Another example, Sri Ramakrishna says, when we have tasted honey, then treacle doesn't taste very good. You give it up. immediately. And how this attachment goes when God is realized? Sri Ramakrishna gives an example for that. Suppose there are two magnets and a piece of iron. One is a big magnet, one is a small magnet, and the piece of iron is kept in between the two. Now, towards which magnet will the piece of iron move? Towards the big magnet, naturally, because the magnetic pull is more of the bigger magnet. So he says, God and the world, and we are caught in between. Now, God is a big magnet. God pulls us. We move towards God. So the attachment to world is drops off. When you realize God, when the magnet is completely moved to the bigger magnet, there's no attraction from the small magnet. It's completely overcome. The big magnet has pulled the iron piece to itself. God's power is so great, attraction. all the attachment diminishes when we meditate on God. The more we meditate, the more the attachment diminishes. Attachment becomes lesser and lesser. Attachment to anything, it becomes less and less. All worship and spiritual disciplines are directed to one end alone, namely to get rid of worldly attachment. All the spiritual practices that we do, it's only one aim, to get rid of attachment. And once the attachment is gone, God realization happens immediately. Therefore, all worship and spiritual discipline are directed to one end alone, namely to get rid of worldly attachment. The more you meditate on God, the less you will be attached to the trifling things of the world. The more you love the lotus feet of God, the less you will crave the things of the world or pay heed to creature comforts. It's like children's attraction for toys. The little child is playing with some toy. If you try to take it away, it will scream, it will at the top of the voice. Child won't give the toys. But just wait a few years, what happens? The child wants something and you give that toy, child will throw it away. I'm not interested in that. Now I'm interested in the latest iPhone or the latest video game. I don't want that toy. Overcome that. So as you meditate on God more and more, the attraction for the things of the world, the richer comforts, everything becomes less and less. The more you love the lotus feet of God, the less you will crave the things of the world or pay heed to creature comforts. Your cravings become less and your attachment or even care, I don't care for those things anymore. You will be totally unattached to the world. Though you may still have to live in the world, you will live as a Jivan Mukta. Not that you are going away from the world, you are still living in the world. You are living as a realized free soul. Sri Ramakrishna had many disciples, like M, the recorder of the gospel. He lived with Sri Ramakrishna so closely, but he never encouraged. When he wanted to say, I asked Sri Ramakrishna again and again, I want to give up world. No, you live in the world. You live in the world and spread the words of God. Teach people how to live in the world. Though you may still live in the world, have to live in the world, you will live as a Jivan Mukta. The disciples of Sri Chaitanya lived as householders in a spirit of detachment. Chaitanya is supposed looked upon as one of the incarnations of Lord Vishnu, or realized God-man, and he had many disciples who are householders and who are monastics. The householder disciples, he encouraged them to live as householders, to show the world how to live a God-centered life. Everybody cannot become monks. That's not, monastic life is not for all. Unless you have intense dispassion, intense longing for God, in firm faith, firm conviction in God, the monastic life is not for that people. For such people, start with where you are, praying to God. Then live in the world. As Sri Ramakrishna said earlier, living in the world and praying to God is like fighting from the fort. A lot of convenience is there. Go forward. Slowly, slowly, you will reach God. Not that you won't reach, you will reach God. All things it is needed is intense longing for God and slowly, slowly cultivate detachment. Don't reduce the attachment. And that will happen naturally if you go on meditating on God. Because as Sri Ramakrishna says again in another place, as you move further to east, west naturally falls far away from you. You don't have to push west back. You just go to east. You don't have to forcibly give up world. Just go towards God. The attraction for the world slowly will reduce. You may quote thousands of arguments from Vedanta philosophy to a true lover of God and try to explain the world as a dream, but he cannot shake his devotion to God. In spite of all your efforts, he will come back to his devotion. So now Sri Ramakrishna is saying, talking about people of two different temperaments. There are people who are devoted to God and people who are interested in the path of knowledge. Now, Vedanta philosophy talks about the path of knowledge, mainly, Advaita Vedanta. So, to a lover of God, you may argue, the world is unreal, the Brahman alone is real, all these things are unreal, you should not be attached to all these things, you should not pray to think that God will listen to your prayers. God will accept your offerings of fruits and flowers, and we will listen to you. No, this is all ignorance. You should meditate on that supreme reality, Brahman. You may argue, and for a moment, for a short time, that their devotion may waver, but if the person is a true devotee, will come back to it. However much you push the argument, they cannot be swayed away from that. That's a true devotee. You cannot shake the devotion to God. In spite of all your efforts, he'll come back to his devotion. I was planning to speak a little more, but it's already late. I will stop here.
We've got a few special events coming up. Of course, the regular ones. This Thursday, we've got the yoga class from 10 a.m. We have the fortnightly the spiritual evening coming up on the 8th. As always, discussion led by Gayatriprana. Next Sunday, we have a special celebration. That's the Shivaratri celebration. And we'll have talks by Swaminathan Vishwanathan and Gayatriprana. And of course, the special offering to Shiva with the group chanting of Om Namah Shivaya 108 times. Also, another very special event, the following Sunday, Sri Ramakrishna's birthday public celebration. He talks by Dr. Uma Srinivasan and Sridhara Pranaji, and a bit of live music, concluding with lunch. So keep that in mind. Actual birthday is on Tuesday, the 12th of March. So as always, there'll be a get together in the evening at the Sheraton Povan with a reading by Gayatriprana. Now we'll conclude with a guided meditation. I'll conduct a guided meditation on expand your consciousness. So just give me a couple of minutes to get set up for that.